At the age of 36, I became a mother, though not in the way I had once envisioned. Instead, it unfolded in a manner that turned out to be the greatest gift of my life. For years, I had longed for a child, dreaming of the love and bond that only a parent and child could share. However, life had other plans for me. Medical issues meant that I would never bear children of my own. As time went by, I witnessed relationships fall apart, each ending in the same way: men who desired children of their own. Eventually, I stopped hoping for love altogether, yet I never stopped yearning for family. That's when I met Max. I first saw him at the adoption center when he was 5. He was small for his age, with brown eyes that seemed heavy with the weight of a life already filled with uncertainty. Unlike the other children who eagerly approached potential parents with bright smiles, Max was different. He was cautious and reserved, as though he had seen enough to know better. But there was something about him that drew me in, something I couldn't walk away from. I remember kneeling down beside him, speaking softly, unsure if he would even respond. He was absent-mindedly tracing the edges of an old toy car, looking at me with suspicion. "That's a cool car," I remarked. He didn't respond. "I used to love cars when I was little too. I wanted to be a race car driver." That got his attention. His eyes met mine for a split second before returning to the toy. I smiled. "I bet you're really fast." Still no answer, but this time his grip on the car tightened a bit. It was then that I felt it, the wall he had built around himself, the layers of defense he had learned so young. My heart ached at the thought of it. It took weeks of careful visits, quiet conversations, shared meals, and patient silences before Max let me in. He reached for my hand instead of pulling away, fell asleep on my shoulder during a movie, and finally saw me as someone more than just another temporary figure in his life. By the time the adoption papers were finalized, I knew for certain that he was my son. Max became such an integral part of my life that sometimes I forgot we hadn't always been together. At first, we faced challenges, nightmares that woke him in tears, unexpected bursts of anger, and days when he refused to speak at all. But love is patient, and so was I. We built a life together, just the two of us. Our mornings were filled with laughter over burnt pancakes, afternoons spent racing at the park, and evenings curled up on the couch watching movies and sharing popcorn. Max still had that quiet nature, but over time, he learned to trust. He called me Mom for the first time when he was 6. I remember it clearly. We were sitting in the car after school waiting for a red light. He was talking about something his teacher had said, his little voice animated, when he suddenly turned to me and said, "Right, Mom." The light turned green, but I couldn't move. My hands tightened on the wheel and my throat constricted. "Say that again," I whispered. He frowned. "What? What you just called me?" He looked confused for a second, then shrugged. "Mom?" I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced a smile. Yeah, that's me." He grinned and turned back to the window, unaware that he had just changed my life forever. Now Max is 17, nearly a man, and every day I marvel at the person he's becoming. He's taller than me now, his voice deeper, and his once small hands are now strong and capable. But beneath the broad shoulders and quiet confidence, he's still my boy, the same Max who once hid behind a toy car, the same Max who needed time to believe in love. Our relationship is rare and deep. He still confides in me, sharing things most teenagers wouldn't tell their parents. He still hugs me when he comes home from school and still asks me to watch old movies with him, even when he pretends it's just for nostalgia and not because he genuinely enjoys them. As for me, I love him more than anything in this world. I never married, never found that kind of love people search for throughout their lives. But I have Max, and that is more than enough. People often tell me how lucky Max is to have been adopted by me, but the truth is, I'm the lucky one. He gave me purpose. He gave me a reason to wake up each morning with a full heart. He made me a mother. No matter where life takes us from here, no matter how much he grows or how far he goes, one thing will always remain true. I chose him. And if I had to do it all over again, I would choose him 1,000 times more because in the end, I didn't just adopt a son, I found my family. I began to notice changes in Max's behaviour. At first, they were subtle small things that seemed insignificant on their own, but when put together painted a picture I wasn't sure how to interpret. Max had always been a quiet, thoughtful boy, carrying a calmness that set him apart from others his age. But recently there was something different about him. A new confidence, an awareness in the way he carried himself, the way his gaze lingered on me longer than before. He had always been affectionate, always the first to hug me. When he returned home, he would always rest his head on my shoulder during movie nights, but now those embraces felt different. He held on to me just a bit longer, his grip stronger, his touch more intentional. I tried to convince myself it was just the typical teenage development after all. 17 was the age when boys started becoming men and figuring out who they were. But there were moments that left me feeling uneasy, not in a negative way, but in a way I couldn't fully understand. One day, he met me after work, dressed in a sleek black suit. I had barely stepped outside the office building when I saw him leaning against my car, hands in his pockets, looking as though he had stepped out of a high-fashion magazine. The tailored jacket fit him impeccably, and the crisp white shirt underneath added a level of elegance that seemed far beyond his age. His dark brown hair, usually slightly tousled from running his fingers through it, was neatly styled. For a brief moment I didn't recognize him. I slowed my pace, my breath catching in my throat. Max. His lips curled into a small smile as he straightened up and walked toward me with a quiet confidence that I had started noticing more frequently. "Hey, Mom," he greeted, his voice smooth and steady. I blinked, still absorbing his appearance. "What's with the suit? Got an interview or something?" He chuckled softly. "Not exactly. Just felt like dressing up today." I raised an eyebrow, playfully tilting my head as I studied him. "Since when do 17-year-olds feel like wearing suits?" He shrugged, his gaze steady. "Maybe I just wanted to look nice for you." Something in my chest tightened at his words, but I quickly dismissed it with a light laugh. "Well, mission accomplished. You look very handsome." His smile widened, but there was something in his eyes, something unreadable. "Thanks, you ready to go?" I nodded, still trying to process his appearance and the way he carried himself. There was something undeniably different about him, but I couldn't quite pinpoint what it was. As we drove home, Max was unusually quiet, but not in the way I was used to. He wasn't lost in thought or distracted by his phone. No, he was watching me. Every time I glanced at him, his eyes were already on me, studying me as if he was waiting for something. Finally, I broke the silence. "Okay, seriously, what's up with you today?" He raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" I gestured toward him. "The suit, the way you're acting. I don't know, Max, you're different lately. More grown up?" He leaned back in his seat, a smirk playing at his lips. "Isn't that what you always wanted, for me to grow up?" I let out a small laugh and shook my head. "Of course, but it feels like it happened overnight." "Maybe I just realized some things," he replied, his tone softer now. I glanced at him again, feeling the same strange tightness in my chest. "Like what?" He hesitated, and for a moment I thought he wouldn't answer, but then his voice dropped just a little, enough to make the air between us feel heavier. "Like how much I appreciate you." I swallowed. "Max, you don't have to say that. I know you appreciate me." "I don't think you do," he said, turning his gaze back to the road. "Not the way I mean it." I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter, suddenly feeling as if I was standing on the edge of something unknown, something I wasn't sure I was ready to face. The rest of the drive was filled with quiet, unspoken words, and I found myself wondering if I had been blind to something that had been right in front of me all along. That night, as I stood in the kitchen making tea, I felt Max's presence before I even turned around. "Can I help?" he asked, stepping closer. His suit jacket was gone now, and the sleeves of his shirt were rolled up just enough to reveal the lean strength in his forearms. I smiled, trying to push away the strange emotions swirling inside me. "I think I can handle pouring hot water, but thanks." He didn't step away. Instead, he leaned against the counter, watching me in that same unreadable way. "You work too much," he said after a moment. I let out a soft laugh. "That's what happens when you have bills to pay." "Still," he said, his voice quieter now, "you deserve more time for yourself." I turned to really look at him. Max, is something wrong? You've been different lately. He exhaled, his jaw tightening just a little before he looked away. No, nothing's wrong. But the way he said it, and the way his fingers drummed lightly on the counter, told me there was more beneath the surface. I wanted to ask the questions that were swirling in my mind, but for some reason, I hesitated. Instead, I reached out and squeezed his hand. Well, if there is, you can talk to me about anything. His eyes met mine again, and for the briefest moment something flickered there, something raw, something real. I know, he said, then smiled. But it was different now, softer, almost knowing. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between us. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was just the natural progression of a boy becoming a man. But deep down, I knew the truth. Something was shifting, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. The next day, Max invited me to the jacuzzi. It was a Saturday afternoon, one of those lazy days. Time seemed to slow down as sunlight streamed through the curtains in golden beams. I had just finished folding the laundry when Max appeared in the doorway, casually dressed in swim trunks with a towel draped over his shoulder. "Hey, Mom," he said, leaning against the doorframe with the same quiet confidence that had grown more noticeable in him recently. "Come outside with me." "You never use the jacuzzi anymore." I blinked, taken aback. "The jacuzzi?" "Yeah," he replied, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. "It's a nice day and you've been stressed. I think you could use some relaxation." I let out a light laugh, shaking my head. "I appreciate the offer, but I have things to do." Max raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" he challenged. I hesitated, caught off guard. The truth was, I didn't have anything urgent to attend to, just small distractions I kept myself busy with out of habit. It had been so long since I took time for myself, and maybe he was right. "Come on," he insisted, stepping forward. "Just for a little while, it'll be nice." There was a warmth in his expression, something reassuring. I sighed and gave in. "All right, fine, let me get changed." His smile widened as he turned toward the backyard. "I'll be waiting." I changed into a simple swimsuit and wrapped myself in a lightweight robe before heading outside. The jacuzzi was already bubbling, steam rising into the crisp afternoon air. Max was already in, arms stretched along the edge, head tilted back in relaxation. He looked so at ease. For a moment I just stood there, admiring how much he had grown. "Are you going to stand there all day, or are you getting in?" he teased, cracking one eye open. Shaking my head with a chuckle, I stepped into the warm water, feeling it envelop me. The tension in my muscles melted away instantly, and I exhaled, settling into the corner opposite Max. "See?" he said with a knowing look. "Told you this was a good idea." I rolled my eyes. All right, you win, it does feel nice." For a while, we sat in comfortable silence, letting the warmth and gentle bubbling of the water fill the space between us. It was peaceful, the sound of birds chirping in the background, and the occasional rustle of the wind through the trees. "You work too hard," Max said suddenly, his voice soft but firm, his eyes fixed on mine. I let out a breath and leaned my head back against the rim of the jacuzzi. "That's life, sweetheart. Someone has to keep the lights on." He frowned slightly. "Yeah, but you never take time for yourself. When was the last time you actually did something just because you wanted to?" I opened my mouth to respond but hesitated. The truth was, I couldn't remember. "See," he said, as though reading my mind. "It's been too long." I smiled slightly and shook my head. "And you decided to change that by dragging me into the jacuzzi?" "Step one," he grinned. I chuckled, shaking my head at his antics, but there was something in the way he looked at me, something deeper than just playfulness. It was in the way his gaze lingered, in how his body language had shifted lately. There was a closeness between us now, a change in the air I couldn't quite name. I didn't want to overthink it, so instead I closed my eyes, letting the warmth of the water wash over me and allowing myself to relax for the first time in a long time. Max just watched me, silent and steady, as though waiting for something. The warmth of the jacuzzi surrounded us, the steam rising into the crisp evening air. The silence between us was not uncomfortable but thoughtful, as if we were both lost in the same quiet moment. The water bubbled gently, the soft hum of the jets filling the space where words failed. Then Max spoke. "Do you believe in soulmates?" I opened my eyes, glancing at him across the water. His expression was unreadable, his gaze steady, lips barely curving into the small smile he often wore when he was deep in thought. The question caught me off guard. Soulmates? I echoed, buying myself some time to think. Yeah? His voice was calm, though there was something behind it, something careful, as if he was stepping into unfamiliar territory. I tilted my head back, staring at the dusky sky. I don't know, I admitted. I used to believe in it. When I was younger, I thought there was someone out there for everyone. Someone meant just for them. He was listening intently and I could feel it. I sighed. But then life happens. You grow up and realize love isn't as simple as fairy tales make it seem. I smiled wistfully. Maybe it's not about fate. Maybe it's just about finding someone who chooses you over and over no matter what. I turned my head toward him. His brown eyes were locked on mine, quiet and tense. What if soulmates aren't about romance? He asked. I frowned slightly. What do you mean? What if soulmates are just the people who understand you better than anyone else? The ones who feel like home, no matter where you are? My heart softened at his words. That's a beautiful thought, I said. And yes, in that case, I do believe in soulmates. His expression didn't change, but there was something that flickered in his eyes, something profound and unsaid. He adjusted slightly, resting his arms on the side of the jacuzzi. You've always been there for me, Mom, he said. I smiled. Of course, Max. That's what parents do. He exhaled a soft laugh, shaking his head. No, not just as a parent, as a person. I remained silent, waiting. You believed in me before I ever believed in myself. You gave me a home when I didn't think I'd have one. You chose me. His words landed in my chest, warm and heavy. I choose you again, I said gently. His gaze darkened a bit, a shift in the atmosphere between us. Me too, he whispered. For a moment we were silent. The sun had completely set, and only the soft glow of the pool lights and the golden warmth spilling from the house illuminated the space. Then, so quietly that I almost missed it, he spoke. Marry me. I blinked, my breath catching. I let out a short, breathless laugh, assuming he was teasing. Max? What are you talking about? His gaze didn't falter. Marry me, he repeated, his voice calm and steady. My heart skipped a beat, confusion swirling within me. Max, I'm serious, he said, his expression unreadable, but there was something real in his voice. You don't have to be alone anymore, he continued. I know you sacrificed a lot to raise me. I know you put your life on hold for me. His voice softened. But what if you didn't have to anymore? Tears burned at the corners of my eyes. Max, sweetheart, I love you, but you don't have to. I know what I'm saying, he interrupted gently. I know you love me, and I love you more than anything in this world. He sighed slowly. You're the most important person in my life, and I want to take care of you the way you've always taken care of me. I swallowed hard, overwhelmed. For 17 years, it had been just the two of us against the world, facing every challenge life threw our way. He was my son, my heart, my reason for everything. But as I looked at him now, the man he was becoming, I realized that somewhere along the way, I had stopped seeing just the little boy I once held in my arms. I saw a person, an incredible, kind and selfless young man offering me more than just words. Loyalty, devotion, a promise. I took a deep, trembling breath, searching for the right words. Instead, I reached out and took his hand, squeezing it tightly. For now, that was enough. And from the way Max smiled, that soft, knowing smile, I knew he understood. Max squeezed my hand, his fingers warm and steady around mine. We sat there for a long while in the bubbling water, the world around us quiet and still. I felt the weight of his words settling between us, a promise of devotion and care, not the kind bound by romantic ideals, but the kind that comes from years of unwavering love and trust. I smiled softly, shaking my head as I squeezed his hand back. You're a remarkable young man, Max. His lips curled into a small smirk. I learned from the best. I chuckled quietly, but there was a deeper emotion inside me, one I couldn't fully put into words. It was overwhelming, this realization that Max, my little boy, had grown into a man who wanted to take care of me, just as I had taken care of him. A gust of cool evening air brushed against my damp skin, and I shivered slightly. Max noticed right away. "Come on," he said, standing and offering me his hand. "Let's go inside before you get cold." I let him help me up and we stepped out of the jacuzzi together. The soft flicker of the fireplace cast a gentle glow on the walls. Max took a slow sip of his tea, then looked at me with the same thoughtful expression. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. I frowned slightly. "Regret what?" "Adopting me," he said quietly. "Choosing this life. Being alone all these years." My chest tightened, and I set my tea down on the table before turning fully to face him. "Max, look at me," I said. He lifted his gaze, and in that moment I saw something vulnerable beneath the confidence he carried. A part of him still wondered if he had been enough for me, if I had wanted more from life than just being his mother. I reached out and cupped his face gently in my hands, just as I had when he was a little boy. "You are the best decision I have ever made," I said, my voice firm and unwavering. "You were never a second choice, never something I settled for. You are my family, my heart, my everything." His eyes softened, and for the first time in a long while, I saw that little boy again, the one who had once been too afraid to believe in love. "Max, you gave me a life filled with meaning. You gave me love I never thought I'd have. How could I ever regret that?" His jaw tightened slightly as though he were trying to hold back his emotions, but then he let out a slow breath and gave me a small, grateful nod. "I love you, Mom," he murmured. I smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "I love you too, sweetheart. Always." And with that, we sat together in comfortable silence, the warmth of the fire wrapping around us like a blanket. No more words were needed because he finally understood. He had always been enough,